Yes, I'm very glad to be joined by Professor Gerry Stimson. You have been working on harm reduction, I think, for 50 years now. Initially in the field of illicit drugs, you recognize that working with heroin users, the risk of spreading AIDS was much higher than the risk of the drug itself. And you became advisor to the British government. I think you even coined the British drug policy for more than 10 years. At some point, you, however, decided also to get involved in tobacco harm reduction. Can you explain why this topic became interesting to you?
Yes, it's a very kind introduction, and it reminds me that I've been working in this field for rather a long time.
Oh, sorry.
I was in harm reduction for many years, and then I worked with WHO, United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, and World Bank, trying to sell that idea to many countries which were then experiencing problems of HIV and later HCV with drug users. So then around 2010, I guess, to jump a few decades forward, I heard about e-cigarettes. And I thought, well, this looks very interesting, because I didn't know until then what the harm reduction option was for smoking. So that's when I suddenly thought, well, all I've learned about drugs harm reduction could apply to this area.
When you did turn to tobacco harm reduction, what did you expect? Much welcoming from society, from governments, an optimistic endorsement?
Absolutely, but that didn't happen, because I thought that my view that here was a good solution, and in fact a solution that doesn't cost governments any money. That's unusual in public health, because it's the person who's switching is paying for it. It's not government paying for treatment or paying for a prevention program. And I thought that all my colleagues in public health would jump on this as well, but it was a completely opposite to that, and disappointing, because many of my colleagues, public health directors and so on, were very much pro-drugs harm reduction and pro-drug policy reform. But when it came to tobacco, it was a different gaze. They had a very different idea, and they were very suspicious about this, and we can explore that. But yes, I felt very lonely for a while.
One reaction to be less lonely, perhaps, and to raise support was perhaps the founding of the Global Forum Nicotine, I think in 2014.
When Paddy Costel and I had this idea for the Global Forum on Nicotine, we wanted to have a forum where everybody was welcome.
Yeah.
Whether it's manufacturers or politicians or researchers or nicotine users. And that was and is still our vision, that this is an event open to everybody. But of course, that has its difficulties, because some people don't feel comfortable.
Well, let's name it. You didn't reach out to WHO and to name it precisely.
Yes. I mean, as well as the Global Forum on Nicotine, we have Knowledge Action Change has some big projects which are about communicating about harm reduction. Reaching out is important, but there are some people who are very hard. Some people are very hard to reach because they don't want to listen at the moment, and that includes WHO and some other big international groups.
Yeah, it's a really problem for us as an associations. Of course, we have technical expert knowledge, and when we approach, for example, we have issues in Germany like prohibition of menthol, comprehensive flavor bans on health reasons. If we approach them, they just say, well, we will not talk to you because there's an internationally binding treaty.
Yes.
The Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, and it doesn't allow us to talk to you. I think it's quite problematic. Do you think that's a correct interpretation?
I think that it's this is Article 5.3 in the FCTC. I think it is both a problematic article, and it's often over-interpreted and wrongly interpreted, because it was designed to keep the industry at arm's length, but it didn't forbid contact, yes. But it said, you've got to be very careful and clear when you have contact with the industry. I think it is a flawed article, because in the current context where you have a wide, where tobacco companies are changing, if they're now manufacturing e-cigarettes. You need to encourage that.
And in a recent interview, you said you are still optimistic. It sounded a little bit cautious, more cautious than perhaps in 2014.
Yes.
But are you still optimistic, and what would be your prognosis on tobacco harm reduction? You said it will happen. We do not know when.
I remain optimistic because I think what is driving this is consumers and products. Governments can get in the way, or they can help speed things up. But if you look at the interest in safer nicotine products globally, it's on a trajectory going upwards. Even where they are technically illegal, there's a demand for them. So the smokers know that this is a viable alternative, and there are good products, and the products are improving all of the time. For example, Japan doesn't have a policy on harm reduction, but in Japan, cigarette sales have dropped by 50% since the introduction of heated tobacco products. That's never been achieved before in tobacco control. So there are some really good examples where this is clearly working, and that's why I remain optimistic.
Well, so we will share your optimism and hope for a good development. Thank you very much for the interview.
You're very kind. Thank you very much.